Never Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a 5 or a flop.
The theme for season 2 is Booktok and Bestsellers, and this week we're reading my personal favorite book, not to get ahead of myself here, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak.
Yes, this has been a big one coming. This is one of the titans of the season in a season of titans.
I would say a titan of both seasons so far.
Well, we'll have to see about that first.
I will say we are planning our season 3 lineup right now. There's some hard to beat ones on there.
You know, we make sure that every season we got to bring the flops, but we got to bring the 5s too.
Yeah, we do. All right, what's new?
I sadly have enjoyed a long week of not working, and now I am in the midst of my resuming work. So,
because you get the whole 4th of July week. Ugh.
Yeah. So I've forgotten how to work. My work laptop has really forgotten how to work.
Love that.
Yeah, like it was refurbished when they got it to me, and you can tell that it is refurbished because it doesn't work that well.
Personally, I never shut down my work laptop. And when I was editing the previous week's pod episode, you can see we're kind of caught up with ourselves here. So when I was editing the Underground Railroad this past week, I was like, oh, I'll just shut my laptop and plug it in. And then it all restarted on me and I lost all of my editing.
See, that's bad for you, but I also I shut it down completely like on the weekend, but not during the week.
I don't know. I like pretend I do and then I don't actually.
It's bad for the environment and it's bad for your computer, but yet I'm like, well, I use it every day. Like,
same
with my normal laptop.
I need all these tabs open. Like, what am I supposed to do? This is also our first week filming since coming back from New York.
Yes.
We filmed next week's episode first because of the fiasco that you will hear about at the start of that episode. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'm sadly adjusting to the post-New York life. Update, Cat's a Jellicle Ball. I realized I said I thought it was going to be horrible in the Underground Railroad, and I wish I could go back in time and slap myself in the face for ever saying that.
That is, yeah, it was the best thing that we have ever seen.
God, we had so much. They extended it. So I think they extended it through August 13th, and I wouldn't be shocked if it kept going. You gotta go.
I know. If they're not sold out already of that, like, extension run, you need to go. Like, we've already influenced Erin's sister into going.
Exactly. I told her, I'm like, Rose, if you can't go, I'll buy you tickets, and that'll be your Christmas gift. Like, you have to make it work.
Absolutely insane. And we have a little bonus episode treat coming that we'll talk about later.
We did give it away in the Underground Railroad episode.
Okay.
So that is the Water for Elephants episode.
You can tell it's been so long since we talked about the Underground Railroad that I forgot about that.
We recorded that episode a long time ago, and I only know because I finished editing it on Monday. And as we know, these podcasts come out every Tuesday morning, so.
Okay, so let's just say that we saw Water for Elephants, and we will reserve our thoughts on it for the bonus episode.
I will share one thing right now because I didn't know it going in. Sebastian from Glee was the main character.
I cannot believe you didn't know that. I thought we just both understood.
It should be something I should have known, but I just didn't really look up any. I think I wanted to go into the musical just completely blind.
Yeah. It's gonna be so hard for the book to overcome the fact that there's not a famous person attached to it because the musical has Sebastian from Glee and the movie has Robert Pattinson.
Also, is it Reese Witherspoon?
Yeah, Reese Witherspoon.
Also famous. Mm-hmm. Are you reading anything good right now?
For reasons that we'll get into in next week's episode, am not reading ebooks at the moment, which is how I normally read like half of my books. Mm-hmm. But that is a really good thing because I have a stack of books that I own that I have not read, and I am absolutely like destroying them.
Oh,
I am plowing through, So I buy a lot of books, but I'm comfortable with that because I buy a lot of them on so they're not taking up physical space. And I also don't spend a lot of money on books.
You get a lot of used books.
I get a lot of used books. I get a lot of ebooks on like $2 discount, like stuff like that.
All the time, Grace is like, she texts me, she's like, this book's on sale, go buy it.
Yeah, because I get an email if anyone there is a Kindle girly, iPad reader, whatever, and you do not get the BookBub newsletter. That's where they all come from. So whenever a pod book goes on sale, I'm like, Erin, if you want to get this, it's $2.
Yeah.
But so as a consequence of that, I just have like books pile up quickly in my life. And I don't have a problem with that necessarily. But I don't want to like be like one of those people where they're like buying books and reading books are two different hobbies, because that is absolutely true. And I don't want it to be true of my life.
It is a very dangerous mindset to get into.
Yeah. So I'm like, I can buy all the books I want if I keep on top of them.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to do.
It's also like city living, your room is only so big to put
I know.
in. And
like,
you have the rest of your space is shared, so you can't just be like, hey, sorry, data scientist Ashley, you can't put any furniture because it's all my books.
Exactly. So, like, if I was living my own life in, like, a 2-bedroom condo or whatever, and one of them was my office, then I would be absolutely fine.
It actually has to be 3 bedrooms, so office and pod studio.
For the pod studio. But, like, if I had another place to have 3 bookshelves, I would happily have 3 bookshelves. Yeah. But I just don't have the room to have 3 bookshelves. So I have to cull my collection to 2 bookshelves and maybe a windowsill.
Rough.
Yeah.
It's hard out here.
But it's okay because I am tearing through them. What are you reading?
I currently am reading... Actually, before I get into what currently I'm reading, I'm highlighting 2 books that I got on our New York trip.
Oh.
So the one I read first, and I read this probably in like 6 hours, and it was the day we left New York, Daughters of the Deer.
You read that? You started it in the morning when we got up to go get on the train. And when we were on the train, you were like, I'm going to finish this.
And I did.
Yeah.
And however, the author has the world's worst name, which is Danielle Daniel, which I believe Daniel is her married surname. And I'm like, what an unfortunate combination that is.
Okay,
however,
well, you better hope that we never want Danielle to come on the podcast, because now she won't, now that you've insulted her name.
This book, it was automatic 5 stars for me. I'm actually recommending it when we do probably season 4.
Don't get too ahead of ourselves.
I'm getting ahead of ourselves. When we're famous in season 4, we'll be reading Daughters of the Deer. The average rating on Storygraph is the highest I've ever seen, which is 4.35.
That's really high.
Which is batshit high. Like, that is... Usually, it's like, we're lucky if we hit, like, a 4.
Once you get above a 4, you know it's really good. Or else there's, like... It's just, like, a crazy hype.
The other book, which I'm currently reading, and I'm only, like, 100 pages in, so I don't really have my full thoughts yet, is Black Kate by Charmaine Wilkerson.
Okay, I am excited to hear what you have to say about this when you're done, because it's one of those books where you see the cover, like, everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But I haven't read it, and I don't really know what it's about.
I'm actually looking at the cover now, and I didn't realize it was a person's face on the cover. I was like, oh, look at those colors. And then I'm like, oh, that is a woman's face.
It's the sound of the listeners Googling and me Googling, because I did not realize that either.
It's also rated very high on Storygraph. Its average rating is 4.14.
That's very good.
So I just kind of grabbed these 2 books randomly at the Housing Works bookstore, which is where they filmed the All Too Well, the short film, 10-minute version. I said that out of order. Apologies to all my Swiftie friends.
Excellent bookstore, though.
Excellent bookstore, yeah. They also had, like, vintage clothes. I would go in that section.
And a cafe. Like,
yeah, that was cute.
Taylor Swift's Location Scouts, good job. She should hire you again.
But yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now. Are you ready to get into The Book Thief?
Let's get into The Book Thief. Would you like to hit us with our synopsis?
Absolutely. It is 1939, Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier and will be busier still. By her brother's graveside, Liesel's life is changed when she picks up a single object partially hidden in the snow. It is the gravedigger's handbook, left behind there by accident, and it is her first act of book thievery. So begins a love affair with books and words as Liesel, with the help of her accordion-playing foster father, learns to read. Soon she is stealing books from Nazi book burnings, the mayor's wife's library, wherever there are books to be found. But these are dangerous times. When Liesel's foster family hides a Jew in their basement, Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. In a superbly crafted writing that burns with intensity, award-winning author Markus Zusak has given us one of the most enduring stories of our time. And that last line I left on there because I agree with it.
Because you're like, I want to give him my kudos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you can see the first book that we started off with this season, All the Light We Cannot See, World War II. And then we said when we got to Kristen Hannah, we were like, we can't read The Nightingale because we have a non-negotiable later in the season about World War II. And that's this. And I definitely think if you're doing a relatively recent historical fiction retrospective, you have to read The Book Thief.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. And I'm sure we're going to get into that when we're talking about the book.
So tell me a little bit about Markus Zusak.
Of course. So he's born in Sydney, Australia, to which I have to make the note we always make when we have an Australian author. Please give us more Australian historical fiction. We really need it.
Yes. Australia needs it.
Exactly. We only have Taya Cooper, and I don't think that's representative because the Luminaries was New Zealand. But he was actually born to German and Austrian parents, so they had recently immigrated and didn't speak any English, so that's why this book is still, like, his heritage, his
Okay,
backstory.
Understood.
So The Book Thief is definitely his most popular book, but he also wrote a handful of others, including I Am the Messenger, which is definitely one I've heard of.
The only other, I think, Markus Zusak book that I've heard of, I purposely didn't, like, go to his author website or anything, is I Am the Messenger, because I think they had it in, like, the bio or, like, a selected chapter in the back of The Book Thief when The Book Thief was popular. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really heard of any others. I haven't done any digging, but every so often I do wonder, like, hey, what happened to that guy?
Well, his latest book is Bridge of Clay, which came out in 2018. He's won some numerous awards, but nothing massive of note. Like, I feel like a lot of the authors, especially with those really well-known books, were like, oh, they won this prize, and we're always trying to remember who won the Presidential Medal of Honor and all that. But he really hasn't won anything of note.
Okay.
Which is kind of insane to me, because just thinking of how massively popular this book is.
Well, you have to be American to win the Pulitzer, so he probably would have won it, let's say, if he had been here.
I think he would have been.
Or, like, the National Book Award or something.
He would have been the 4th Pulitzer of the season. Sorry, our friend group chat is blowing up right now, and I don't know what's happening. Anyways, sorry, I was distracted. Now I made Grace go look. In 2013, the Book Thief movie came out. Have you seen that?
I have. I think I saw it in theaters and not since. So,
Same.
Yeah, so I remember the face of that little blonde actress.
Yes.
And I remember very distinctly that there's, like, a scene on a bridge.
The movie was good. I don't remember much either, but I remember really enjoying the movie.
It was a good movie. It was a good adaptation. It wasn't, like, an indelible adaptation, but it was very good.
I would have to say, on the scale of movies that we don't know too much about but have heard things, like Half of a Yellow Sun, how that's supposed to be a really, really bad adaptation, this is the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen it since it came out either. I think I Am the Messenger is also a movie.
Oh, okay.
Hang on. I'm going to Google that.
Well, now that we're recording the episode and I can lift my self-imposed moratorium on going to Markus Zusak's website, I can, like, look into that and, like, maybe I'll read another one of his books.
Oh, there's a TV miniseries, of course, that came out in 2023.
Don't tell me it's a miniseries.
It is a miniseries. It is called just The Messenger. I'm not really familiar with any of these actors, I don't think.
Maybe it's Australian?
Could be.
Okay, well,
but yeah, so that's something to look into. We will not be watching the Book Thief movie for our bonus episodes. However, I would be down to rewatch that at some point.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to make some, critical cuts.
However, our lineup for the bonuses are set, and I am very excited.
You'll hear more about that in 2 weeks.
Before we jump into talking about the book, let's give our usual disclaimer. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within it rather than any real historical figures, and I believe the only real historical figures were the Nazis. So we are...
As a monolith.
We are judging them quite harshly.
But not any differently than we were in the first episode.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, in this book, I guess there aren't that many present Nazis. Like, it's
not
really
actively.
It's more about, like, the looming threat and the complicity of your neighbors.
Okay.
It's like a scarier day-to-day life when you're not being actively attacked.
So the book is from the perspective of Death, but it's also kind of jointly from Liesel's perspective. And she's a young girl. She's not going to know these figures by name.
Yeah.
Aside from, like, Hitler.
Absolutely. But let's talk about that perspective choice, because I think that's one of the things that sets this book apart so much, is that it is narrated by the specter of death.
This is probably one of my favorite narration choices in any books because it is so unique. If you're going to pick any historical period to be narrated by death,
this is the one.
This is the one.
Absolutely. For me, when you describe that as a concept, it sounds like it could be like a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it could be really hokey, but the execution of Markus Zusak on this is really good.
So well done.
You do get touches of death talking about during the period of the war, like how much more I have to work, how, touching the faces of people in their last moments, like blah, blah, blah. But it's really not heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. And you're really mostly getting the story of this young girl, Liesel. It's really poignant, I think, that Liesel's story has stuck with death for so long, out of all of the stories. And the story does not, again, we gave our spoiler warning, the story does not end with Liesel dying.
No.
Liesel does not meet death in the narrative that we are presented in.
No, you get a little scene at the end where she's like an old woman who dies.
Mm-hmm. Naturally, not during World War II.
And I love that it's not death just as a concept. the author really humanizes death.
Yeah, death has a persona.
You get interludes into Death's thoughts throughout, which I really like because you can see a lot of... You would think it would be a stagnant character who wouldn't really develop, but there's a good bit of growth that happens.
From the time that he's been given, this is not either like when we read Song of Achilles, there were characters that were goddesses that were just like that would just show up and talk. They were not separated at all from the regular cast of characters. And in this case, that isn't true. Death is like forcibly separated. It's very interesting. It's like there's a wall of glass there, and Death can never leave and cross that barrier, but can't look away either. It's an interesting level of connection. Like I said, this is a tricky concept to pull off, and I think it's balanced really well.
It is, and I think that balance, I would say, because I know in past episodes we've talked about the divide between POV, like, oh, this is like 90% this person, blah, blah. How would you characterize this? I would say Death is probably like 60%, and the rest is 40%. I would say it's through Liesel's eyes more directly.
I don't know. I didn't really think about breaking it down because all of the sections with Death are so focused on Liesel.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only sections that you get of Death talking about the burden of its job are maybe 5 to 10% of the book. Like, the book is Liesel's story, whether or not it's in her head or from Death's telling.
But what's really cool about that divide is that it allows Marcus to travel with the other characters.
Yes.
Like, we get Max's background. We go with her foster father, Hans, off to war. And we wouldn't be able to get those scenes otherwise.
Yes. I know that there are a lot of people who care a lot about person perspective when they're reading a book. Like, they're like, oh, I like to read first person more than third. Like, blah, blah. I've never been that kind of person. No.
I prefer to write certain ways over the other.
Yeah, I think that's much more understandable. So I'm not often thinking about the mechanics of that unless an author like pigeonholes themselves into something where I'm like, well, you pointed out that I wouldn't know that. It's all so seamless.
It is.
Like, it's hard to break up. There are chapters and sections broken up in this book, and I couldn't really even tell you where the breaks happened. It was frequent or infrequent enough that it just kind of all flowed together. And it wasn't told chronologically necessarily either.
Yeah, you get lots of previews into what's to come.
For me, there's a part that demonstrates that most actively. And there's a section of the book where you see Liesel has been settling into her life and she's in a pretty good place. She has gotten along with her foster parents. She has a good relationship with her foster father. She has her friend next door. She's no longer this like orphan that's just been dropped off and is like unable to speak, missing her brother who's passed away, her mother who's now in a concentration camp. But then you turn the page and Death tells you, basically, don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Because, just so you know, the street is going to get bombed in the future.
It's like things do not end well.
Yeah, and then you move on, but you know when you're reading it, it's not a gotcha at the end that all of the characters, except for Liesel, die in this bombing.
Yeah.
You know it's coming as you're reading. And it's not
and
about...
And that makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, because it's not about the twists and turns of plot. It's about you holding your breath because you know, like, life is really coming to hammer down this poor girl. And you love her and you care about her.
And she's such a sweet character. This book has some of my favorite... I really probably don't have too much to say about this book because just everything is so incredible to me.
We've said this a couple times, like both of us earlier in the season, like right before we recorded Pachinko. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have anything to say about this because I just think it's great and that's all I can say.
Yeah, this book has some of my favorite characters in any book I've ever read. And it has, like, have been since I first read this in, like, elementary school or middle school.
And you said you have revisited this book several times.
I've read this book probably about 6 times. So I am, very familiar with it. This was my first time reading it in a very long time, but I have read it a lot in the past.
Same. I read it a couple of times. I'm not so much nowadays just because now I feel like I have so many books to read and only one life to live. Exactly. And now I have to have a job, you know?
Oh my God.
So I can't just read all day. But I used to be a huge rereader.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty common thing for voracious adult readers to have had that
background. Yeah. I would reread books like over and over and over. Yeah. So I've read the Book Thief more than once, but it's again, like I'm sure even longer than since you've read it because I probably haven't read it since maybe freshman year of high school. I don't know. But when I opened it up and started reading, and Liesel's foster mother started throwing around those German swear words.
Flashbacks.
I was like, oh my God. Like, it put me right back. I was like having visceral memories.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many parts of this book that I was just like sucker punched with remembering. The German curse words, the Gravedigger's Handbook.
The opening where so colors are a pretty big way of theme being infused in the book. And it starts out with Death describing the colors of the Nazi flag and like comparing them to like red with the bombs and Black Death, like all of that, and the smoke.
Yeah, it's so much of it
opening.
Is so visceral.
Yeah.
But yeah, the characters, you hold those characters in your heart. They're all so different, but they end up in like the same place, which is like you care about. Like I would say, I don't know, not counting Death, maybe 5 central characters.
Liesel, her parents, Max and Rudy,
Yeah. So there's Liesel. We've gone into her story. Yeah. Her 2 foster parents.
Hans and Rosa.
Yeah, and Hans is like the gentle, loving one. Rosa is like tough on the outside and soft on the inside. Mm-hmm. Like she's one of those people, like she'll hurl those swear words at you, but when her husband wants to hide a Jewish man in their basement, she does not turn him away.
Yeah. It's like no hesitation.
Yeah. Max, who is hiding in the basement, and Rudy, who is Liesel's best friend from next door, and he is always trying to steal kisses from her.
I love him. They are just like the cutest friends in the world.
I know, like running around, stealing things from people, playing soccer,
and Rudy just
beating people up.
Rudy keeps getting so mad because she keeps taking books, and he's like, "No, I want food. Go get us food."
I know. He's like, "What's the point of taking these stupid books?"
So let's get into the plot a bit, and we can. It is a pretty long book, but we'll move through the plot pretty rapidly, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is just like those intimate day-to-day scenes that you really need to read.
Well, before we hop into the nitty-gritty, I do want to say it's a pretty long book, but it's a little bit a verse novel. Like, not quite.
Yeah.
But it's very poetic.
It is.
Like, there are a lot of interspersed, I wouldn't call them couplets, but like just almost couplets from Death, pulled out sections of text. It is long, but you can, you go through it.
So it starts out where Liesel is with her mother and her brother has just died.
They're on the train going to the foster home.
Yes, and it was supposed to be both of the children. Her brother does not survive the journey. However, that's where she finds the Gravedigger's Handbook.
When they stop to bury him off the side of the train.
So she steals that and brings it with her. And then she moves in with Hans and Rosa. And she is obviously an emotional wreck as a child. Any child would be. She just watched her mother die, and her mother, she is kind of thinking like abandoned her, but actually left because she was very sickly and impoverished and wound up going to a concentration camp and wanted her children in a better situation.
Yeah, and we get this information kind of fed to us slowly because, like we said, we're from the perspective of Liesel, who's 10 and doesn't quite understand how everything works. Mm-hmm. But we find out later that her mother was aligned with the communists.
Yes.
So that's what gets her sent off. So she's under the impression at the beginning that she can write to her mother or that one day her mother will come back for her. But that is not the case.
And then so she's having these nightmares, and Hans is eventually the one who goes and sits with her at night and finds this book that she stole. So he is not the most educated man. I think he dropped out at a pretty young age. And so they're both kind of trying to learn to read this very complex technical manual together.
Yeah, like not a fun read.
No. So they're working on this at night, and that kind of becomes their habit of reading in the middle of the night. I'm just going to keep moving forward here.
Let's go.
She's getting accustomed to school. She's eventually makes friends with Rudy. She's getting acquainted with the children. And then early in the book, one of the more notable scenes is the book burning. So in celebration of Hitler's birthday, which feels gross to say in celebration of, but that's the scene in the book. They're burning books by a lot of Jewish authors, any books where Jews are painted in a pleasant light, and any books by communists, by anyone.
Anything that's dissenting.
Yes, thank you. Anything dissenting. And Liesel steals a book. And this is when she really gets her title of the book thief, because she loves to steal books.
Once you've done it twice,
you are officially a thief. So, and she's like holding it to her chest. It is burning her skin because it's still like smoldering. And Hans is like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, let's get home. But then so they keep reading and they keep bonding and building a vocabulary. And then eventually Max comes along.
Yes. So what we get introduced to earlier in the book when Hans, the foster father, fought in World War I.
Yes.
There was a big to-do over all of the guys in his unit. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was, in his unit, there was basically one day they would pick out a guy every day to do some kind of unsavory task.
Yeah, I think it was like scrubbing the bathroom or
like
something.
You go clean the bathroom, you go write mail for the general, like you go, and he got picked out one day to go do this sucky task, and everyone else that day got sent into battle and no one came back.
Yeah.
But his closest friend was killed, and that was the friend that taught him his defining trait, how to play the accordion.
Exactly. And he and his friend had been like, they would do anything for each other.
Yes, they traded off together.
And then we meet Max, who then as an adult, we find out is his son, his friend's son.
So that's the reason why Hans and Rosa take Max in and hide him in their basement, because first of all, they have never agreed with the rise of the Nazis. Hans is not a member of the Nazi party, and that impacts his business like negatively greatly. And also because he was like, I owe my life to your father, so I could never turn you away now when I could save your life. And Max is down there for months,
a very long
years
time,
maybe. Yeah. He comes up and like one time sleeps in the spare room when he's ill, which after reading the Underground Railroad was really hard because that's how she gets caught when she's in North Carolina in that book. So I was like, oh my God, don't go upstairs. Stay downstairs.
And he and Liesel form a really close friendship where she takes her nightly reading down into the basement, and that becomes their practice of spending time together. He writes her like little children's books. It's very cute.
The thing that I remember most from the movie, and I also remember it from the book, is she'll describe the weather to him, and she doesn't just say like, it's sunny outside. He's like, I can't feel what the day is if you just say. So she has to like get more creative with her words and her language describing the day. There's a scene where it snows, and so she brings a bunch of snow down into the basement so they can build a snowman. But he's down there for days.
Well, more than days, for a very long time.
For months.
Then you can really see Nazi power is continuing to rise, and all of the children have to join the Hitler Youth. So that becomes pretty prominent, and there starts to be more pressure on Hans for not being part of the Nazi party.
Yes.
And then it all kind of comes to a head when they are marching a group of Jewish people through town to go to a concentration camp, which is one of the most...
It's kind of the first time in the book that the characters are confronted with like the scale of it all.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to have Max around, but he's only one person. They're seeing like a line of absolutely like miserable, tortured people like march through the center of town.
Hans gives an old man who had fallen like a crust of bread. And they beat the old man, they beat Hans. And this is when the party really comes down on him.
He gets sent off to war. And even though he knows like it was the right thing to do, he's like, why did I do that? Because he knows it's endangered his family.
And Max. And then Max eventually decides to leave because of that.
And they also, the war is like, it's nearing its zenith. And, we're in the future. We know that it's not good to be in Germany at the end of World War II. Yeah. So they start having bomb drills. Nearby areas are getting bombed. And everyone has to start going down into the basements.
Yep.
And that's when he's like, I can't stay anymore, when people are going to come and be poking around in the basements.
And at the same time, on Rudy's family, the pressure's also coming down because the party's seeing what an amazing athlete he is. So they go to his parents, and this is when we have our All the Light We Cannot See crossover. And
they want to send him to Nazi school.
They do want to send him to Nazi school, a la Werner in All the Light We Cannot See. And his parents say no, which you don't really say no to the Nazis at this point. So his father also gets sent off to the war effort.
And this is the tragic thing that comes back later, because we've already said that Rudy doesn't make it to the end of the book.
Everyone dies.
But I believe, doesn't his father survive? His
father makes it
because he says, I should have sent him to that damn school.
Because if he sent him to the school, he wouldn't have been there.
It's just such a tragic, like, one line.
It's horrible, yeah.
But yeah, they do eventually get bombed. The only one who survives is Liesl because she went into the basement to read.
Yeah, because that's why I've been emphasizing that, like, that was her practice to do.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually she's taken, we haven't even talked about the mayor's wife.
Oh my
She,
gosh.
like, did laundry for the mayor's wife, and then she would steal books, but the mayor's wife would, like, leave the books out for her. It was this whole thing.
Yeah.
But the mayor's wife takes her in because it was everyone on their street was bombed, but the mayor lived in the nicer part of town.
But this is really well handled. Like, you get the sense that, like, this is the best possible ending for Liesl given all that's happened to her. Mm-hmm. But you don't get the sense that it's a good ending.
No.
Like, sometimes I feel like you read a hokey book and it's like, oh, we want these two characters to be able to end up together, but one of them is, like, married, and then the other husband, like, dies.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, well, good. That worked out. Like, no problem. And there's no, like, associated trauma from that.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, Liesl was in this very poor family, and she ended up living in the home of the mayor in, like, the lap of luxury, all these books to read with a surrogate mother who will love and cherish her because she lost her own child. Mm-hmm. But you don't feel happy. You feel like, well, like, at least she won't be on the street, but, like, I don't know how she could ever, like, function again. That's where you leave her, really.
The bombing part of the book is, like, the most harrowing scene just because of how it's written. Like,
you just have to read it for yourself.
We've read a lot of very heavy subject matter this season and last season. But this scene in particular for me, because of how it's written, like, Death goes through and individually every character that we know, he describes how they're found and how he carries them off.
One by one.
It's just, you just start crying and more, like, and more.
Liesl finds her father's accordion. She finds Rudy and she tries to give him his kiss so he'll wake up. But she always refused to give him when he was alive.
It's like, just so...
It's visceral.
It's visceral. And then eventually the final death scene is when he's taking Liesl. She had been writing a book too as she was a child. And he, like, presents it with her. And she's like, you still have this. And that...
Because that's the point of Death is, like, for some reason, the book thief is the one that he, like, always remembered out of all of the people he's ever encountered. Like, not even because he waited until she was old to come and take her.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I can't even put into words the ending. It's just, it's one of the hardest scenes every time I read it, but it's probably one of the best written scenes in most books. Mm-hmm. At least in my opinion.
In our professional podcasting opinion.
Exactly.
Well, and that's something else I want to touch on, which is something I did not know until we put this book on the list. It's a young adult novel.
Yes, so I looked this up, and I looked it up a while ago, and I don't remember where I found this information. But I read somewhere that originally it wasn't marketed as YA, and then they switched it to market as YA.
That's very interesting, and I'm not surprised by that. And, like, I even pulled out, I own, like, a physical copy of it, and it has a medal on the front, and the award is, like, a young adult category award. This, to me, is the perfect kind of young adult book because it is really sophisticated for that kind of age range. Like, you can tell, like I said, I'm not surprised that it wasn't written that way. It was just marketed that way later. As a reader, as someone who's, like, maybe 12 reading this book, you're learning, you're feeling really smart, you're not being talked down to.
It's like I said with the Underground Railroad, that author really understood and respected that his readers are intelligent. Markus Zusak does the same.
Exactly. You are not being talked down to. You're learning new things. You're understanding complex emotions. You're feeling complex feelings. All of this stuff, it's being presented to you from this perspective and not just from Liesl. This is a great YA novel.
Why is the Land Remembered? Why was that mandatory reading for me and this was not? This is the kind of book that teaches people empathy, and I'm about to go off on a mini tangent, so I'll reel myself in. But you think of how many, like, middle schoolers and people that age group are now getting radicalized by the internet. But if we put more of these books that have empathy so well written and so well constructed in it into our curriculum, maybe that would help.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of revising the canon. Like, as we go on, like, we should always be looking at it and seeing what needs to be taken out and put in.
Yes.
I was really excited to revisit this book because I feel like this is when it came out and was popular, between the time it came out and when the movie happened, essentially. Yes. It was like a titan of a book. Like, it was ubiquitous. Yeah. Like, everyone knew everyone had this book. And it blew up, and I think now it's just kind of known as like a really big, like, popular book, but I don't think people talk about it that much anymore. Mm-hmm. But revisiting it, I'm like, no, like, this is a gem. Like, it deserved all of the hype that it had. Like, they were absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And it made a good movie. It sold all of the it deserved to sell all the copies that it did.
This book holds up for me. It was a 5 then, it's a 5 now. Nothing's changed.
Yeah. Well, before we hop into our calculating, do we have any wrapping up thoughts?
This is my favorite book ever. I have nothing else to say.
All right, then let's move.
I have one more thing to say. This is one of... I always have one more thing to say. This is one of those books that's like, I read so many books in my lifetime. This is one of the ones that's like, oh, I'm going to be making my children and grandchildren read this.
Yeah, it'll hold up.
This is one of the ones that I'm like, this book will always be a core part of not even just my reading experience. This book helped shape me into who I am, and I'm like,
And those are the best kinds of books.
This is one. I'm like tearing up because I get, not even just because this book is sad, I just get so emotional talking about it because it's excellent. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts?
I am very happy to have read this again. I am not going to get rid of my copy. I'm going to keep it. Maybe I won't reread it next year or the year after, but this will not be the last time in my life that I read the book.
Oh yeah, I will read it. My copy is like falling apart. I need a new one,
But that's, now you have a book that's loved. Like,
exactly.
That's the falling apart came from you.
Exactly. It's like one of the ones, it's a hardback, it's missing the dust cover. Like, never seen that. Like,
oh, yeah. All right.
Historical accuracy.
Let's get into it.
So this one is another one. We've had a few this season where there's some things that are just like chronologically off, but I think the history is used so well for the intention of the novel that I don't let it dock my historical accuracy. Mm-hmm. You'll see what I mean.
I will.
Overall, the facts are accurate. So Liesl joined the BDM at 10, which is League of German Girls, to create, quote, fit, strong mothers. There was compulsory membership for girls 10 through 18 beginning in 1939, so when this book is set. Mm-hmm. You know, the things we see through the book, the treatment of Jews, the shops marked, Kristallnacht, all of that. It was very real. I think we covered a lot of that just in other conversations we've had the past 2 seasons.
And we've talked a lot about how this is a really ubiquitous period in historical fiction. So a lot of this people are familiar with.
Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of skim over that and get to more of the specifically applicable to this book. So there were no recorded book burnings in 1940 when this took place in the book. Likely the author just shifted the chronology to make it fit, which is a very common theme we've seen throughout every book we read. Mm-hmm. The most notable book burning, and likely what the scene is based on, was in 1933, which was the one in honor of Hitler's birthday.
Okay. So they just stopped having book burnings?
I think they kind of burned most of them.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Like, they were just done?
I don't think they needed, like, I don't think they were big enough.
Wow.
Which is horrifying.
That's really sad.
And you think it was probably situations where if there were existing copies, they were hidden.
Okay.
I'm sure there were some other ones, maybe not recorded, maybe not on this
Smaller.
Scale. Munich and Molching were not bombed on the date mentioned in the book. So Stuttgart was the city that was actually bombed on October 7th, 1943. But these cities were pretty far away, so this was something like the author just kind of moved it for the purposes of where this novel was set.
Okay.
It wasn't even a case of like, well, they were close, like it could have been hit, like it was just blatantly moved. So I think that would probably be the biggest movement. However, Munich was bombed throughout the war. So, and like the drills and all of that.
Yeah. So really,
it's, you know.
What does it matter?
It's like.
Not to say that it doesn't, but.
If it was any other book, it would impact my historical accuracy. But again, it's like with the Underground Railroad, how I thought history was just used so well, even though we know the events in the book did not happen at the times they were said to. Mm-hmm. I think it was an effective shifting done here.
Yeah, or how there was no plague in Stratford-upon-Avon within like 10 years of that,
it's
of Hamnet dying.
If it's done well enough, I think it's
yeah, and this is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
Yes. So something I thought was really interesting, remember how I said his parents were pretty recent immigrants? Mm-hmm. So at least 2 scenes, come directly from what his mother had witnessed as a child. The first one is that she lived with a foster family like Liesl, so I think in some sense Liesl was very much inspired by his mother. And the father, like Hans, did not want to fly the Nazi flag for Hitler's birthday. However, his wife made him like Rosa did for Hans in the book, fearing punishment. They had the struggle to find the flag, much like the scene played out in the book, and they eventually did fly it because
you had to.
You know? And the second one, a group of Jews was marched through her town by soldiers. An old man who couldn't keep up fell to the ground, so a boy gave him some bread, which is what Hans did in the novel. Soldiers whipped both the man and the boy, and in the novel, they were also both punished.
Wow.
So there are some I would say those are two pretty notable scenes. Notable from Liesel's point of view as a child learning what's happening.
Yeah.
And also notable plot-wise for the book as well.
Yeah, I had no inkling that was going to be the case.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well. I didn't know that at all. So I assume there were probably some other minor things as well, but those were two of the bigger ones.
Okay, wow. All right.
Like I said, I didn't go into the history too much just because World War II was a very popular subject for historical fiction, and this is pretty much in line with...
Yeah, the broad strokes are not things that we need to go into again.
And because, yes, this book is very historical, but it's also so character-driven. Anyways.
All right, well, I don't think we need to spend a long time on our calculator.
No. As usual, we're judging in the categories of historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes, and this might be the first time we have had completely the same. And what do we have?
5s across the board.
This might be our ultimate 5.
And you want to know why? It's because I couldn't think of a reason to give this a 4 for historical accuracy. And I was thinking, I was like, I don't give 5s for that.
No, I was looking, and I am much more generous with historical accuracy. I was looking, and I was like, what was changed for the purposes of this novel? I'm like, how is it different than Four Winds, where she shifted around some chronology? And
that doesn't really matter to me in this sense.
Yeah.
And having those two scenes come from his mother's real life.
Oh, that weighs it out too.
That pushes it over the top.
So this might be the first book where we both gave 5s across the board.
We'll have to fact check that.
We'll have to.
It's hard to know because the Library of Alexandria, Ashley's Virginia Tech Google Drive, has been burned.
Truly, truly devastating. So we might not actually be able to fact check that. We've had some we both categorized as 5s, but I don't think full 5 ratings.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get here.
This might be the legend that never happens again, but actually, next season, stay tuned. All right. We promised a pretty brief episode just because this book is so good. This is one you really just need to read for yourself. And don't be intimidated by the length. It goes so fast.
Yeah. And I don't even think, honestly, we were that quick.
No. It's just like, I could either spend 10 years talking about this book, or like, I could just be
sentence.
like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is the world's best book.
All right. Well, what are we going to be reading next week?
Next week, and you'll also get to find the mystery of why Grace can't read ebooks anymore. We'll be reading Babel by R.F. Kuang.
And we won't tell you who, but we'll have a very special guest in the studio.
This is our 3rd guest of the season, and we have not had a repeat guest.
No. And we are really excited. We love having guests in the studio. We're going to try and work it out more for season 3. I want to keep doing it.
And if any of our listeners are interested in being guests, even if you don't live in DC, we can Zoom call you in. We've done that when we had Noelle on here for a bonus episode.
Exactly. All the way from beautiful Texas.
Exactly. So if you are interested, you can hit us up on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at fiverflop_pod. Or you can email us, fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com.
Don't forget to join our Storygraph reading challenge. We're almost at the end here. And if you have any books that you think we should be reading for any future seasons, you can fill out the recommendation form in the bio of any of our social medias.
And until next time.